Acts 12, Peter was in prison expecting to die, and then an angel leads him out of prison at night, and they come to the house where the disciples were gathered together praying for him. Firstly, let's note the angels still work in our lives today. God always seems to work through some kind of mechanism, and the way he uses angels is an example of that. Try to imagine then how Peter felt. And when they were past the first and the second guard, they came to the iron gate that leads into the city. This opened to them of its own accord, and they went out, passed through one street, and immediately the angel departed from him. While the angel was with him, Peter would have felt so safe. And as they walked along the first street, Peter saw the angel walking with him and knew that he didn't need to fear, but then the angel disappeared. Well, that's how it seemed visually, but actually the angel was still there. It's just that Peter's eyes could no longer see it. It reminds me of a time when Elisha and his servant were in Dothan, surrounded by their enemies, and the servant is frightened. So Elisha asks for the man's eyes to be opened, and he sees all the angels that are camped all around them to protect them. Now, Elisha knew they were there, and he had so much faith that he didn't even ask to see it himself, but he asked for his servant to see it. And so with us, God's Spirit is everywhere, and he makes his angels spirits. We live in a world covered with angels, with God's presence, with God's Spirit. It's just that we don't see them. But they're there, and I think we can rightly assume that we each have a guardian angel, a particular angel assigned to us. That's why when the disciples heard that Peter's standing outside the house, they say, no, it must be his angel. They believed in guardian angels, and there's no reason to think we don't have guardian angels. And that would explain some of the apparently odd things which I think happen in every human life sometimes, the way someone just appears at a strange moment to help us and then kind of fades away and disappears. Just carry that possibility in mind as you go through life. But one last thing. There were the disciples up all night praying for Peter. And then, as it were, ding dong, the doorbell rings. Rhoda goes to see who it is, and she finds it's Peter, and she runs inside with joy and tells those people who are praying that their prayers have been answered, and Peter's outside. And they said to her, "You are mad." But she confidently affirmed that it was so, and they said, "Man, it must be his angel." And then they saw Peter and were amazed. They ought not to have been amazed. You see, we can pray for something without really imagining it will ever come true. We must learn the lesson. We must expect prayer to be answered. We must believe it really will be. We must imagine the answer coming. We're to keep pushing in prayer until something happens and believe it will happen. They were praying for Peter to be released, and there he was, and they said, of course he couldn't have been answered. Sure, we must pray for the right things, but we mustn't pray for things with the internal secret assumption that, well, of course, isn't really going to come true. Even those early Christians made that mistake, and we can make it very easily ourselves.